Good afternoon, folks. How you doing? This is part 2 of the ensemble of messages from the Leo Naranjo for Governor bought campaign. B-O-T. I'm in a good mood. I hope you guys are having a great day. Today is the 1st of June. Dr. Pepper. You want to bribe a candidate? There you go. Once had a lady in the welfare office tell our operator she needed to speak to me. It was very important. Her case was having issues and she needed to get a hold of her manager, which was me. And the operator came down and asked me, are you going to speak to this woman? And I says, no. She said, Leo, it's your client. You have to speak to her. I said, you see what time it is? It's 20 minutes to 9. Tell her I haven't even had my Dr. Pepper yet. No, I'm not going to speak to her. Tell her to call back after 9 o'clock. She loved the hell out of me as a worker. Because when she came into the office, she would bring in soda cans of Dr. Pepper that I couldn't accept. But it was funny as hell. It made my coworkers laugh. Why am I saying that? I have no earthly idea. But I did an interview with Miss Kim Yeater about it. Leo, how would you handle the unions? Because you know they roll people. And how would you handle the unions? I said, with a can of Dr. Pepper and a Snickers. Well, I don't think that's very professional. I don't think that you'd be able to handle the unions at all. No, ma'am. You don't understand. A can of Dr. Pepper and Snickers is all I need to go about 2 or 3 days of conversation to deal with the unions. And we'll see who snaps first. And I can give you an assurance it ain't going to be me. Moving on. Oh, Steve Hilton. Steve Hilton's out there stumping and bumping and got everybody he's bought and paid for and give money and promises and everything else to really ratchet up the heat on old Chad. Amnesty Bianco himself. Bow out, get out of the race, stop, quit, you're a traitor if you don't. Oh my. Brings me to a fast story. I led opposition forces against the U.S. finance units that we aggressed against during our field training. Caught my soldiers removing their batteries out of their electronic equipment called the Miles gear. Miles, the little kind of like laser tag stuff that you see today. Military integrated laser system. And I asked my soldiers, what are you doing and why are you doing it? Well, we're taking our batteries out of our packs. Why? Well, because they do. Why? So that when we get shot, we won't be registered as a hit and a KIA. Why? Well, because if we don't do it, we're not going to be able to do good and we won't win. I ordered those soldiers to return the batteries to those packs and double-check them the first couple of times that we went out to ensure they were there. And the instructions I gave them were very clear. If you do what I say when I tell you to do it, and when I say it, and move when I tell you to move, you won't get shot. And you won't be KIA. Two times I did that. By the third time, had judges coming down to the aggressor tent while we were chilling out, and they let us know that they were getting complaints that our soldiers must be cheating. No, not from this end. They say, well, the commander was complaining because we have too many OPFOR soldiers coming in replacing batteries, and they want to know why they're replacing so many. And the judges had to tell the battalion commander, sir, it's because they don't want to be accused of cheating. They're swapping out their batteries so they're fresh every 12 hours. What did the other side do? I really didn't care what the other side did because my team defeated them constantly. So why do I bring this up? Because for the last week, Steve Hilton has been doing to Chad Bianco what he was doing trying to get a POTUS endorsement, begging. Chad, I really respect you, but Everything before the word but is inconsequential because everything after the word but is the only thing that matters at that point. Heard that somewhere before. Chad, I really respect you as a candidate, and you've run a fine race. Yes, oh boy, you've really given it your all. But that basically tells me that you're full of shit. The writing on the wall for Mr. Bianco was when he threw his hat in the ring as a sheriff. Now, to split hairs, I also a long time ago called for Mr. Bianco to make a choice. Be a sheriff or be a candidate, but you're not going to do both successfully. We've got a 178-year history in California of never electing a sheriff as governor. I don't care how many resources you have. I don't care how much backing you got. And I really don't care about all the grassroots supporters you claim to have behind you. 178 years of state history indicates something different. And it's a trend not likely to be broken this year either. So that's Bianco. But Hilton is desperately trying to get that man to quit. He's desperately trying to get Bianco voters to switch. Problem is, sir, the ballots have been open for a long time because of the mail-in operation. We've gotten about, 2 or 3 weeks worth of mail-in balloting that's been going on? You're a little bit late trying to tell old Chad to drop the race. And you're a little bit of a dumbass if you think that was going to happen anyway. Long ago, it was foretold Chad cannot drop anything. Neither can you. The party will not accept either of you quitting. The party doesn't want you to quit. Neither of you can quit. You're stuck on a train of your own making. We're stuck with 2 crap candidates that the party has created and forced upon us. What happens next is whatever happens next. Other candidates, such as myself, were pretty much ostracized because we didn't have fame, fortune, and influence. Got talked to a little bit by bigwig people, but if they didn't sense that they could control the environment, then you didn't get their backing. I'm going to give a plug to somebody we haven't seen in a while. Mr. Mercury even brought that out. Daniel basically put out a little expose there that said, hey, you take a big donor check, it comes with attachments, strings. You got to do stuff to get that big money. Okay. Just make sure that when you take big money, they understand the concept as well. When you give up the big money, there are no strings. Carte blanche, it's a clear check. That's the end of that. If that's not acceptable, don't give up the check. But you don't get those influences without the checks. Now, we've heard some non-party candidates say that Mr. Swalwell's been pumping up old Sheriff Chad, but his demise seems to coincide with Chad's dropping in the polls. The Hiltonites are feasting on this. But if you look at the polling numbers, for some strange reason, Becerra and Hilton are always 1 point off. Trying not to do that on purpose. Hilton, Becerra. Hilton, Becerra. Hilton, Becerra. Always 1 point difference. No poll stays like that weeks on end. That's bought and paid for bullshit. Who are you sampling from? And who's paying for the sample? Because when you buy your poll, you can get whatever you want to get. It's called massaging the numbers. Numbers are numbers, but you can make them say what you want to say by shifting them around and excluding certain things from those numbers. Like the Brian Dolly campaign. Oh my God, Leo is the greatest outpouring of a Republican candidate for governor in a long time. 48% of the vote. Brian Dolly got 16% of the electorate potential of voters. 48% is what he got of the people who cast ballots. But 51% of our population didn't even bother with it. Kind of like Chad Bianco in Riverside County. 1.3 million eligible people can vote in an election in Riverside County. Less than 200,000 did. And for his portion of that election, which happened in 2022, against one guy, that was barely 12% of a victory. Oh, I'll give it to you, Mr. Bianco. You won your race, but you didn't do it overwhelmingly. And I made that point when people started telling me about all this crap of how great you are to look at those numbers. And that's when I was convinced, if you think 12% is going to carry California, you're batshit crazy. And if you're saying, I have zero chance of winning, a loss is a loss, sir, and you'll never get 12% in California and push that as a win. Oh, and you had 178 years of history against you, so there's that too. At least I didn't have that on my repertoire. But I digress. We're going back to Steve Hilton. Mr. Fox News, I've got a plan. I don't know what the plan is, and you sure as hell aren't going to find out what the plan is, but I've got a plan. Look at my notebook on how to make California great again. Well, you know what? We finally took you up on that offer, and we started to look. Now, I'm not what you would call a low-propensity voter, so sometimes I could. I think I'm smarter than the average bear, but people like to think I'm not. And there's a lot about your golden forever crap booklet, whatever the hell you want to call it, that to me reads like a puff piece of bullshit. Poof! Voila! I've turned my Dr. Pepper can into a Coke can. Look at this. Are you ready? I will change the can to say Coke. There it is. But it didn't change, did it? And that's your golden forever bullshit booklet. Now, something that sparked to me a little bit was how you early on phrase certain things dealing with growing homes in this state. You capitalized on the homelessness and your somewhat whimsical ways that you were going to solve the homeless problem, and somewhat whimsical ways on how you're going to solve the housing problem. So I honed in on your little book in the homeless portion of your golden shower plan for California garbage. Oh, it's long. I mean, it's big-ass paragraphs of double-speak, fluffy words that look like AI-generated bullshit that you threw up together on a weekend. But amazingly enough, it's the same nonsense I see or have seen the county put out when they desire to get something for them too, that the union contested. The same flowery crap of words, which mean nothing. Looks good, sounds good, but amounts to crap. So in this big long litany that you gave for how you're going to fix things in California, especially with the homeless issue, to me, 85% of it was bullshit. But near the end of it, there's a little paragraph there that was most alarming to me. And when you read it, and you reread it, and you looked at it, and you went back to the history books and kind of tried to get the same language and the definitions thereof, you basically described 15-minute cities. 15-minute cities are the nexus of what you want to see in California. Industry in one section, everybody that works it on the outer sections, flowing inward, with a little bit of outreach for recreation and enjoyment. The problem with that is you've pretty much removed individual cars. You've pretty much forced mass transportation, and nobody owns shit. Somebody else owns everything. Workers would pay for the luxury of living there. Businesses would pay for the luxury of being there, and some rich landowner, akin to the lordship ways of old England, would be in charge, lording over it all, either as an individual or as a corporation. Take your pick. It's the same thing. And when I saw that, socialism was the first word that came to my mind. The globalistic viewpoint of Europeans that are trying to push that everywhere came to my mind. And I knew right then and there, you, sir, were a threat to California. A charlatan in a suit. But you're from Fox News. And that's the only reason why you got the traction that you got. Now, the rest of your booklet, I didn't want to read the rest of your crap. Because to me, that's what it is. It's crap. I listened to you on the campaign trail when you and I went to the same forums, and I heard the same crap. I hear you talk about the homeless problem, but you don't really have a solution. I hear you talk about the energy problem, but you don't really have a solution. Then you came up with the bullshit slogan, we're going to bring gas down to $3 in California. Meanwhile, I'm driving my daughter across state for a job opportunity because there weren't very many here for her in California. And so we drove cross country to Georgia. That's a long drive. There are many states that you have to cross. And what I found most exciting about that trip, gas was $2.56 a gallon at that time. 1 year later, it was down to $2.46 at that time. And $2.46 was the lowest number I had seen to date, March of this year. But you were stuck on $3 of gas. I'm going to give you $3 of gas. Gas prices will come down to $3 a gallon. And you'll be happy. I threw that last part in. Why would we be content with you freezing prices at $3 a gallon for gas when out there in America, prices were down to $2.46? And you're helping California? What's the other bullshit plank that you do? Oh, yeah, that's right. Your first $100,000 of taxable income will no longer be taxable. I, Steve Hilton, promise you we're going to get rid of the first $100,000 of taxable income so that you can vote for me. I'm going to buy your vote. That was for me. I'm going to buy your vote so that you can have $100,000 written off your taxes. You don't have to pay state tax on it. I don't know what world you came from, sir, but your expertise does not extend to math, obviously. And then I started looking at that number. And I just want to remind some folks out there who probably don't know diddly shit about what I am, who I am, or what I'm about, or anything else like this. I'm that Republican that sat in a union governing board. Probably the only conservative in my union at that time. United Public Employees Local 1, Sacramento, California. UPE 1, as they are otherwise known. Safety officer, that was me, 7 of 9 years. Chief steward, rose through the ranks to get that position, 7 of 9 years. Oh, and by the way, chief steward, that's one step below of the guy that's overall deals with punishment, write-ups, everything else like that. Has the responsibility of nearly 1/3 of the 5,000 employees we represented. Safety officer, whoa, that was easy for me. I was over 5,000 employees, no matter where they were in Sacramento County, to ensure the work site was safe for them. That's why the county hated my ass. And third, I was an elected member to the governing board. The folks that negotiated contracts, the folks that negotiated working conditions, the folks that would argue massive changes that management sought to instill on their workforce. Detrimental to the workforce, that is. So I was the conservative deep inside the union belly of the beast. Was I well liked by my members? By my members, yeah. By some of my counterparts, not so much, especially the CPS group. Those ladies were a trip. They couldn't stand my ass. But then again, they were from the LGBT community, and I was the antithesis of what they stood for. I was the God to their Satan, or the Satan to their God, whichever one you want to look at it. But when we started negotiating with the county, and it came down to the money portion of contract negotiations, everybody on that board slid their paperwork down to me. Crunch the numbers, Leo. And Steve Hilton, you're showing to me you don't have a freaking clue about what you're talking about. I'm going to write off $100,000 of your first $100,000 income to be tax-free. Wow! For the low information voter, that's huge. Oh boy, I vote for you just for that, Steve. Thank you. I don't gotta pay no taxes. For the low informational voter, yes, that's probably sounding like a great promise. Going to remove $100,000 off of your income taxes. The problem is, throwing Chad in here a little bit, nearly 150,000 people pay over 50% of the tax up and down the state of California to begin with, according to Chad. He says 140, I just round up to 150. Be that as it may, top 1% earners in California, top 2% earners in California drop half of the taxes for this state. Look it up. See how wrong I possibly am, because that's the number that's been fed for years. Steve Hilton wants to wipe out $100,000 of income from the tax pool. Let's start crunching those numbers, ladies and gentlemen, before you get a solid tax base. How many people are we talking about in California for what's left of our state? Because remember, nearly 1 million people fled in 2020. We've lost our first congressional seat in Congress in over 178 years of state history. Thank you very much, Gavin Newsom. You're the moron that did that. And people have been leaving since 2020. This is now 2026. We've got an outpouring of people that have left. And supposedly people have come in, but they're nowhere near the $100,000 mark. So depending on which AI program you go to, or Google, or Ask, or anything else, the number floats between 25% and 49% of our state population that makes $100,000 or less for taxes. If you're smart, you already see where I'm going with this. If you're not so smart on math, that's okay. Follow along. Steve Hilton wants to write off $100,000 of your taxable income from state tax considerations. The problem is, rounding down, that would be near 40% of our people in California now not paying taxes. Where's that money going to come from to pay the bills in this state? The rich are already fleeing because they feel they're paying too much. Leo, if we don't do something, they'll take their tax money and run. Okay, well, that's already happening, so that debt should be increasing there, because the amount of taxes that they're paying goes from 51% down smaller. So let's just, for argument purposes, say 51% of the top 2% are paying 51% of our taxes, and the equivalent of enough have left that now we've lost 5% of their taxable donations. Start there. Take away 40% of the taxpayers in California from paying any type of tax. Start there. Do you see the numbers? You've just removed 50% of the tax base from income generation, i.e. taxes. You've lost 50% of the income. But you, sir, haven't said shit about the bills. No reductions, no limitations, no scale backs, nothing. How are we going to pay for that? If the current budget is around $320 billion, you've lost $160 billion already. $160 billion deficit starting off, and you haven't even gotten into office yet. And you've created 6 new offices since we've been running around here trying to get elected on the campaign trail. Your dumb ass has created 6 new jurisdictions. How you gonna pay for those? People, when you have a tax imposed, you get to vote on whether you want to accept it or reject it. But when you get a fee, surcharge, fine, or anything else that's hidden in the cost, not called a tax, you don't get to say shit. It gets imposed and you pay it or you don't. And if you don't, you lose stuff. Your home, car, property, bank accounts, you name it. Franchise can go after it. I should know. I worked there for a while too. 4 years I was in the franchise tax board. I can tell you stories about them, but that's another day. So when Steve's making that promise, we're going to knock down $100,000 of the first amount of income from taxable income, you've just eradicated nearly 50% of the population from paying taxes, Steve. Congratulations. It fits with your rhetoric about turning California bankrupt. Is that your globalistic view on how to fix this state? The golden shower that you're getting ready to offer us financially? You make a lot of assertions about kicking on the valves to pay for the energy, using natural gas, anything like that. The problem is some of these things have already been turned off for so long, it's going to take a while before they come back online. So what happens in the meantime? And just like Chad, your doofy ass is talking about we're going to start producing oil and getting generated revenue from that. But those systems have been down so long, it's going to take a few months, if not a couple of years, to reestablish where we were from where we are today. And by the time you even get there, 6 more months are going to pass before the next governor can try and reverse anything. But you're not going to be it, I hope, because you're a walking disaster for this state. Financially, you don't have a clue. And I'm not sure what it is that you ran as a business, but I'd sure as hell like to know what the business was so that everybody can know you were a businessman in charge of something. Because right now, you aren't in charge of diddly. And you never have been in charge of anything. You've been a mouthpiece for Fox News. You've been a mouthpiece for the British Prime Minister. That country now looks like shit, and you're trying to bring it over here to California. You read the oath like you're reading a script. Doesn't mean anything to you because you don't care. That's why you can easily say on a forum in front of the Pat Nixon ladies of the Federated Women's Republican Group in Yorba Linda, though it might be illegal, we have to consider amending our constitution so that we can have California declare bankruptcy. It rolled right out of your mouth so easily because you have no concept of the consequences, and I really don't think you gave a shit if there were any consequences anyway. Because for you, it's just a moment. You're a Christian? Hard to say. I've never heard you utter Jesus Christ's name in anything. You believe in God? A lot of people believe in God. The question is, which one are you believing in? My name is Leo Naranjo IV, candidate for governor in the 2026 election. Please take the time to vet your candidates. If you haven't yet voted, choose, but choose wisely, folks. God bless you, and I'll be back on the third and final installment coming up shortly.